Sorry. No, I'll start adoption. Sorry. All right, now we're going to go to 6A, discussing a possible action regarding posting vacancy for superintendent position, superintendent search process, timeline, and superintendent qualifications profile. I'm going to open the floor for a motion.
I move that we open the superintendent position as required by policy for 10 school days on the district website and receive applications for consideration.
I have a motion by Ms. Alderete. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Brown. Any further discussion? If not, all with a show of hands in favor. Motion passes 7-0. We're going to move on to item 6B, discuss and take possible action regarding personnel and administrator employment, resignation, reassignments, leaves of absence, and contract renewals. I'm going to make a motion that we approve as discussed in closed session. Motion by myself, second by Ms. Brown. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor with a show of your right hand. All against? Passes 6-1. 6C, discuss and take possible action to approve the Natalia Elementary and High School Targeted Improvement Plan.
Yes, sir. We have Mr. Lopez. We're going to do our best version. I think the information too that you all may have seen bits and pieces of. We're going to get through the elementary and the high school plan.
Good evening. So just really quickly, I'm going to give you an overview. Ms. Steele will come and talk about the elementary targeted improvement plan, and then I'll recap the high school targeted improvement plan. Targeted improvement plan is required based on state and federal accountability ratings. It's meant to improve student outcomes. It has to be made available to stakeholders for feedback. It has to be approved by the school board and then submitted to TDA by March 2026. The two campuses that did have to create targeted improvement plans are the elementary school based on their comprehensive status in domain 3 of last year's accountability ratings, and then Natalia High School because of their third consecutive year with a D rating.
Good evening again. I'm going to make it quick. So a lot of what you're going to see in here is also in our campus improvement plan, which has already been approved. So we kept the goals very much aligned so that we're not trying to hit a bunch of moving targets. So the areas of improvement that were discussed with our ILT team are looking at improving the number of students that are performing meets on STAR. So going above the approaches, we need to be looking at meets. Improving student growth across all grade levels, targeted interventions, teacher confidence in the curriculum, and then having structured data analysis protocols. So across the campus, being consistent in those protocols so that we're all doing the same thing. Part of the TIP plan, they give you a couple choices of what we're going to focus on. Our focus is the intensive curriculum and instruction. So the student outcomes, I'm not going to read each one, but they are, again, the same ones that are in our SIP. The first two are STAR-based, and then the other ones are based on our report card, our school report card, and so improving the scores that we've received in that report card. Part of the intensive curriculum and instruction is looking at what our curriculum is and how we're supporting that on our campus. And so we are using Bluebonnet Learning for reading and mathematics. And part of how we support our teachers in that is through our PLCs. And so we are consistently holding those weekly meetings modeled by the product advisors. And so those are the ones from Region 20 that we partnered with for the grant. So they're modeling PLCs. And then facilitated by the instructional coach and admin. So, you know, they're kind of modeling it, then we pick up and kind of use that same process. We are focusing on the unit module lesson internalization. And I think you guys are kind of familiar with internalization. It's been talked about before. Yeah, okay, so good. So really focusing on that internalization piece and identifying the parts where our kids might struggle and making sure we're addressing those issues before we get into the classroom and doing the lesson. And so that's the purpose of that internalization piece is we need to address those things that we know our kids are going to struggle with because it's almost impossible to do it all on the fly. And then looking at the student work that we're getting at the end of every lesson and how is that student work showing that our kids are succeeding or that they're not getting it, and then what are we doing as a result of that. For assessments, we are using the assessments that are part of our curriculum. We're using those assessments because they are aligned with the curriculum and they're also aligned to our state standards. We have implemented a data analysis protocol so that when we finish an assessment, we're looking at those individual skills, and not just the skill, but how was it tested? Because a lot of times what we're seeing is it might be the same skill on multiple questions, and they got it right on one question, but wrong on another question. So really looking at how was it tested and where's the gap. Daily checks for understanding with our exit tickets, the implementation of the QSSA and teacher observation, and then the screeners that you're aware of, the BOI, MOI, and EOI. And observation feedback, each of our teachers is observed at least twice a month, and that could be either from the product advisor, the instructional coach, or administrator. A minimum twice a month. I will say right now, most of the teachers are getting at least once a week. And so some of those are designated as T-tests and put into Stride as T-tests. Some of them are for the grant and looking for implementation or support that they might need with the grant. With those, the feedback is provided to teachers within 24 to 48 hours. The ones that are done with the grant, that's immediate feedback. We leave a note immediately or we follow up immediately to make sure that they're getting their praise or they're getting the coaching. We do have some teachers that are receiving individualized internalization support in addition to the PLCs. And those are teachers either that we've identified as low performing based on student scores, or new teachers that haven't had the opportunity to learn this curriculum yet. And so we're providing them that extra support. These, in the plan, we had to come up with our milestones. What are we doing and what's the timeline? And so these are just kind of going over so far what we have done and kind of where we're at with those things, starting with the weekly and then October implementation. So we kind of staggered it so that we weren't trying to do everything at once. In the progress review, again, Amanda mentioned we did have to, we shared our tip with our stakeholders in the elementary weekly newsletter. It was in the weekly newsletter for 2 weeks with a link for the survey. We also have meetings every other week with curriculum and instruction to look at implementation, where are we at, where are we seeing struggles. Teacher performance, and then looking at a quarterly review by our ILT team. This, you've seen most of this, is just kind of going through the grant and what the spending is on and what we used it for. The bottom is just saying if we didn't have those grant funds, how would we fund all of these things? And so some of it we would fund through Title II funds, it might be local funds, and some of it we might have eliminated if we didn't have that funding. And then last thing is just stakeholder comments from the survey. I will say it was out for 2 weeks. We did only get 8 responses, but...
You only got 8?
8, yes.
I was one of them.
Yes, and it was out for 2 weeks, and so, yes. And so based on that, I will say though, some of the comments we did get, I included the trends with the communication. I absolutely agree with that, and that is something we're working on. And so some of the, I think it was 3 of the comments did mention that communication between the campus and home is not as good as it could be. And that's a direct correlation also to instruction. If we're not communicating with parents how their child is doing, how are they going to help at home? And so that is something that I did want to really showcase, because it is, I agree. I absolutely agree with that. And I think that, that's something that we're going to continue working on and getting better at. Any questions about elementary? I know that was fast.
No, I mean, I just think it's, I don't know what else you can do. I mean, like I said, people complain, they're asked for feedback, and 7 others,
Correct.
other than myself, take the time to respond.
Yeah.
And I didn't leave any comments, no, so. But it's just, I don't know what else we can do to engage people. I mean, we try. I mean, y'all host all these events up here.
And we did, at our academic night, we also gave the parents the QR code at the end of the night. Now, we didn't have a great turnout at that event, but we did give them the QR code But we didn't get any responses after that event. The 8 responses came after we put it in the newsletter.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Garland, Mr. Gomez, Mr. Ramadanis, Ms. Brown, Ms. Alderete, Ms. Love? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
So the high school also developed a targeted improvement plan that I'm going to share with you what they've shared with me. It's very similar, the same formatting that you just saw with the elementary. There was an area of improvement. They actually had an effective schools framework diagnostic done where they came in, did a lot of walkthroughs, went through classes, transitions, and then just created this summary of what the needs assessment were on the campus. They also picked the strategy intensive curriculum and instruction improvements. They had to create the student math goals just like the elementary. The first 2 goals are specific to the needs for ELA and for algebra. Goals 3, 4, and 5, 3, 4, 5, and 6 all have to do with domain 3, which is closing the gaps. They had to list their curriculum. Their algebra is blue on it. That's only algebra 1. Their geometry through algebra 2 is Carnegie Learning. And then their English 1 and English 2 is Sophos. And then for PLCs, they do have some structures in, they're hoping to put into place for next year, which includes things like making sure the master schedule allows for more PLC structure so that more teachers are able to meet together and collaborate. It's a little bit harder at the high school level just because of all the different schedules, CTE courses, athletics, those kind of things. For assessments, more of the similar type of assessments here, and you'll see that they do have beginning and mid-year diagnostics. They also use campus-wide trackers to monitor their data. They have a data team meeting, usually typically on Mondays with their 5 tested areas that they look at the data from assessments that they've taken. Observation feedback here, it's the same as far as each teacher is observed at least twice a month, but most recently when TPA came to visit, we put in that first teach where those walkthroughs are happening more frequently, so a teacher could be seen maybe once or twice a week now instead of twice a month. The milestones, these were set, again, just what the milestones they'll be reaching for next year. You can see that a lot of it had to do with just being able to deliver the differentiated coaching, requiring teachers to submit any type of weekly lesson internalizations or lesson plans. In high school, it's more about lesson plans, not internalizations. And then their progress and review, they'll be creating a monitoring tool so that they can monitor all of these things that they're hoping to achieve next year. This is a plan for next year. The other piece, the last piece here is just talking about the resources. We have to submit what resources are needed to implement this plan. So for example, we need the curriculum, the support for campus administration and that instructional leadership program, the strong foundations for the Algebra 1, an instructional coach, PD, and then you can see with the source of funds right now, we're saying if we get the grant, we use the grant to support that. We use our IMA funds for all the curriculum. And then of course at the bottom, just as Ms. Spear said, if we don't use the grant or have the grant available, then it would just be coming out of local funds or Title II or anything that we use here in-house. Stakeholder comment, there was an email notification sent out with the TIP plan to 435 parent email addresses, and there were 0 stakeholder comments received for this.
Great.
And that's that. Any questions?
I think it's, I don't know. I just feel like those 2 things right there need to be posted for people to see. 435 parents got a request asking for their opinions, which everybody had them during election time for academics. 435 people got the opportunity to give feedback and 0 did. 200 and something of the elementary did and 8 did. I think those are so valid and so real and so frustrating. I mean, I don't understand at all. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
All right, we're going to go to 6D. Sorry. I apologize. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you. I'll make a motion to discuss the TIP plans as presented by administration. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Bradley. Any further discussion? If not, a vote with a show of your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. 6D, discuss and take possible action to adopt an amendment to the district renovation plan.
Board President Dr. Beeks, distinguished members of the board, I come this evening seeking approval of a district renovation amendment. So the district renovation plan was created in 2022. We don't have to gather that group again until the fall of 2026. Our 5-year plan ends in the spring of 2027, so we'll get to get back together as a group and create a brand new one. This is not that. This is an amendment to our current plan that addresses teacher certification. So when we did this plan, we allowed ourselves to hire uncertified teachers. Right now we have 11, 5 at the elementary and 6 at the secondary. Well, House Bill 2 came about this last legislative session, and House Bill 2 says we can no longer have uncertified teachers in core content areas, which are English, reading, math, science. So that puts us in a predicament for next year because we have those 11 teachers. I think it's 10 now. This week we had one elementary teacher pass her certification. If we don't approve this amendment, then those 10 teachers now will not be able to come back to the district next year. So like I mentioned, House Bill 2, what it did, it put notice to every district stating that you are no longer allowed to hire uncertified teachers unless you come up with a plan for the next 3 years on how you're going to get all of your uncertified teachers certified. And if the board okays that plan. So what I'm asking is that we review, and this teacher certification doesn't affect CTE. That was the biggest push for the state to hire, those mechanics working somewhere, and we wanted to hire them as auto tech teachers, or barbers wanted to hire them as cosmetology teachers. It's not going to affect CTE. What it is going to affect is those core content teachers. So in order for us to have a 3-year plan to get these teachers certified, the board has to approve us okaying uncertified teachers for the coming years, for the 3 years. So what we're asking is for an amendment, for an approval of an amendment, so that we can have those 3 years. So by 2030, we're allowing ourselves to get all those 10 teachers certified, and if we have any new teachers coming, get them on a game plan to make sure that they get certified by 2029, 2030. So this is a huge task for the Human Resources Department to make sure that we are in compliance by 2030. So what we have to do as a district, we have to come up with a plan on how we're going to get them all certified by 2029, 2030, and we have to partner with Region 20 as well as another organization. And that plan is one of those resources I put on there. But we're seeking approval from y'all to give us some time to make sure that they get certified. That's what we're asking tonight.
And this issue is obviously not unique to just Natalia. This is what every district in the state is dealing with on uncertified folks, but it's that or nobody in the classroom.
Right, we're lucky to have just 10. I know that may seem like a big number, but we're in a good spot. We really want to go down the road at 20, 30,
Right.
60, 100 plus.
I'll go down the road if there's any questions. Once again, it's a recommendation on behalf of the administration. So Ms. Lowe's, any questions? Ms. Albright, Ms. Brown, Mr. Amadonis, Mr. Gomez, Mr. Garland. Okay. I'm going to make a motion we approve the amendment to the District of Innovation Plan as discussed and recommended by administration. Got a motion by myself, second by Ms. Brown. Any further discussion? If not, show of your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. 60.
Yes, sir. This is the Senate Bill 11. Is this one? Senate Bill 11 is a statute that has come out that allows campuses to implement a prayer period. Basically, during the instructional day, there's a lot of constraints that come with doing that. It requires prayer permission. For those districts who are doing it, it requires parent permission. It requires a change in schedule to make sure that it's completely voluntarily and that you have a plan for those students who are not seeking to participate in the prayer period or a period to read religious text, that you completely keep them out of earshot and away from it. Every district I'm aware of has voted against the resolution to implement the prayer period in their schools, only because our students can have personal prayer in the morning, they can have it at lunch, they can do it after school. We have a really healthy, bona fide FCA program. So there really isn't an issue. It's kind of one of those needless kind of statutes, but it came with a requirement that every board in the state of Texas take a vote by March the 2nd to either approve a resolution or to vote against a resolution that approves the prayer period. I recommend, because students can already pray, we already have a moment built into the daily Pledge of Allegiances where students can have self-reflection. I would recommend to the board to vote against the resolution. I also have in your packet, I think it's about 6 sheets of clergy folks who have indicated they do not support the resolution at all. A lot of them from San Antonio surrounding areas. So that's Senate Bill 11 that I'd like to bring to the board for board action.
Divine light of everybody has seen the one on social media that has approved it. And like you said, it's not about us not thinking prayer is important. I think most of us on this stage, if not all of us, would agree prayer is important in our personal beliefs. But the kids already have those moments, and we do have a really good FCA program that has grown tremendously. And I think what we have is working, and what we don't have isn't broke. So I'll make a motion we approve the administration's recommendation to not implement the extra period as presented. Got a motion by myself, second by Mr. Almadadas. Any further discussion? If not, all with a show of your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. And I think we can adjourn. No, we have to do 6F. Do we have to do 6F? I don't know if anybody brought eggs one way or another to toss items. This is kind of like refereeing a high school basketball game where half the audience is happy and half is really mad.
So let's talk about the 2026-2027 school calendar. Do you have it? Thank you. This is the steering committee. We put an all call out for folks who want to volunteer. Steering committee provides some direction and pathways of what information we need to get to bring back to the board of trustees for consideration. Because we're talking about the calendar next year, we're actually talking about, do we have a 4-day as we currently have in Natalia, IUC? Do we go with a 4-day hybrid, or do we go to a 5-day? There are some other variables that we need to look at and go through the presentation. So I wanted to start big global. There's 17 rural counties, including ESC Region 20. Those are the counties I have listed up there, from Atascosa to Zavala. There's 17 rural counties. 7 districts within those counties operate 4-day school week. 6 districts operate on a 4-day school week hybrid, and 30 districts operate under a 5-day school week. I did not include Bear County. It is not rural, and there's not a other than 5-day school week in Bear County. There's not one that we're aware of. There's very limited available research on the 4 versus 5-day school week effectiveness. There's a little bit of national research, there's some state research. There's a TEA study that we all know probably started with, this is what we want the study to suggest. Therefore, the study suggested that there is some form of statistical difference between outcomes, 4-day versus 5-day. So I think at best what works for the students and community should be the determining factors, because we see success in 4 days in some areas, we see success in 5-day school weeks in other areas. The steering committee got together. One of the first tasks that we did was talk about what are the pros and cons. We all have biases. I have a bias. I'm a 5-day school week person. I'll just be upfront and honest about it. But we try to put those biases to the side and just say, let's talk about what we can think, both the pros and cons. I extrapolated some out to the PowerPoint, but at your dais, you have the full list of 4-day pros and cons, the 5-day pros and cons, in a hard copy. So those are some of the pros that we see from the 4-day school week, some of the cons that we see from the 4-day school week. I'm going to say the one that really sticks out to me the most is that compressed curriculum, longer days and compressing the curriculum. I'll tell you about our phone call or our Zoom call that we have with TA here in a few slides. But I know you all can read that. I want to make a note of the loss of TEA grant funding due to less instructional days. As part of this LIFT funding that Amanda went through earlier, she showed what we've done with our LASSO 3 money. We just received the award letter for LIFT LASSO 4 funds. It's 3-year funds, and I'm going to cover for the board how that's going to be impacted by what decision we make tonight. These are pros and cons of a 5-day school week. I know you all can read the slide, we'll just keep going. I want to talk a little about the loss of grant funding due to less instructional days. TEA says that every district who participates in funding should be at or be committed to moving to 165 instructional days. Those are days that students are in session and teachers are in session. That's considered an instructional day. You can see the grants that we were currently just awarded, $580,000 in LIFT. That's a 3-year grant. We received $580,000 this year, and for the next 2 years, we will receive $580,000 each of the next 2 years. So a total of $1.6 million when you add them up. There's other grants we received, $240 for PLC. That's a 1-year grant. The prep mentorship program, every new teacher we hire, we have a grant that's going to give us $3,000 per teacher. That's a 1-year grant as well. So the total is $820,000, but the number I want this board to remember is that $580,000, because that has a chance to be impacted if we don't get up to, or at least work toward 165 instruction days in our calendar. So to confirm and not just put out information thinking that we're right, Amanda took the time to send an email to TEA Grant Division. They did respond. You see the response. They're basically telling us because you did check the box that says you are committed to moving. We are currently under 155 school days right now. You did check the box and Natalia to move towards 165. Therefore, you were granted this funding. In our Zoom call that we had with Christy Michaels, we asked a question. What if we would not have checked that box and we just put 155 days? We were told that we would have been put on the pile that was not funded because they did not fund any districts that either were not 165 days or did not check the box that said they're committed to 165 days. Every one of those applications that did not do that were not funded. They indicated they received a lot of phone calls when folks learned that that was the reply, but it was already too late as they submitted their application. So basically what TA is saying, you have the grant funds for year 1, you will keep those, but if you do not move to 165 or you do not show an effort to move closer to 165 and get to 165 before the end of the 3rd year of the grant, you would lose that funding because our state curriculum is built on a 165-day model, and if you're not doing 165 days, you're not doing all you can to be the best you can be in delivering curriculum to your students in their thinking. I wanted to do a comparison, so I created this slide just to show where Natalia was in 2022. Our overall numerical grade and accountability was at 88. There was a neighbor close to us that was 86. During that year, 2022, those systems were five. I'm not saying this is a direct correlation because it is not. There's so many other variables that go into this, and there are some 4-day school weeks that are doing very well in some places. 3 years later, 2025, our overall grade in Natalia is 59. Our neighbor overall grade was 72. So we both dropped because the rigor and cut scores changed in accountability. However, our drop was twice the drop of our neighbor. So where we were 2 points ahead of our neighbor 3 years ago, we're now 13 points behind our neighbor. They are in a 5-day school week. Natalia went to the 4-day. I'm not saying that's the reason, but it's just a fact. That's true. These were the actions of the calendar steering committee and the parent focus group. We had meetings with the steering committee on January 23rd, February 23rd, our senior staff admin weekly cadence meeting. We talked this issue through, 127, 23, 210, 217. We had our parent focus group, 20 parents from each category of school, ECC, NES, and junior high and high school, where we were able to extrapolate information from our parents. And then we sent out a parent staff student survey on the 18th of February. The steering committee and senior staff admin meetings, this is the work we did, the list of pros and cons, created a PowerPoint for the focus group, reviewed survey questions for input, provided group input for consideration. In the steering committee, we did kind of a poll. We met for the last time yesterday to do kind of just a straw poll of the members who were present. You can see their level of support for the 4-day school week, what that group came up with, and asked everyone to be very genuine, authentic, to vote your heart, so you get an idea of what staff is thinking about. I can tell you generally what I know there's some staff members who want 4-day school week, love 4-day school week. There's a couple who probably leave if they don't have 4-day school week. But in that group that we had who volunteered to be on the steering committee, those was our straw poll, overwhelmingly supporting the 5-day school week. That's just a small group. Parent focus group, when we met with them, I did not have the 3 options of calendars for them. We just wanted to kind of know their perception of 4-day versus 5-day. You can see there that their input, more folks support the 4-day school week, 20 folks support the 5-day school week, the 4-day school week hybrid, 18 folks supported that. So you can see kind of, it's mixed, it's really all over the place. I'd say it's like 60-40 from that group, 60% providing input in favor of the 4-day school week, 40% in favor of the 5-day school week. In our survey that we sent out, we took this, and Amanda was just exceptional in helping with all this. We sent out the survey to look at these 3 calendars, provide us some input. You can see this is a 4-day school week draft that we sent out, where the students have off every Friday. Staff works, I believe, 1 Friday out of the month. Some form of fashion. It's just exactly what we have now. 59% were in favor of that. 29% were in opposition of that. The next calendar, and that one, I'm sorry, can you go back a minute? That one there is a 150-day calendar day. There were some issues with the calendar this year, where we have 5 extra days built into it. So I think we just kind of said that's what it is when we go through it. When we do the appropriate minutes, the 76,500 minutes, we only really have to go 150 days to attain those minutes because the days are so long. So that's the 4-day school week calendar. The next one, this is version C, but I put it second just to keep it in line with the PowerPoint. So we sent this one out. It's the 5-day school week. Which you can see students come to school every Friday in August, every Friday in September. But starting in October, students have 2 Fridays off per month. October, November, December, January, February, March, and then they attend school 4 Fridays out of April and 2 Fridays out of May before the end. This has a later starting date in August, has an earlier exit date in May, allows us to get all of our minutes. This is a 165-day instructional calendar, the one that you gave and check the box. We have no issues with funding moving forward. The hybrid is a 157-day instructional calendar. The hybrid is well, self-explanatory there. It looks like the students are off just about every Friday with the exception of the month of August. And it does go 157 calendars. This one had 41% level of support, 41% opposition. From the data, we really didn't. We know there's a big group who support what we currently have, and there's a substantial group who oppose currently. So it's all over the place. I think it just comes down to what the trustees have. It looks to me like they're going to leave this decision up to our school board to look at this data. And so that's the presentation, and I would be happy to field any questions that the board may have or ask staff for help who are part of this great committee as well.
The only disappointing thing I have is the numbers again. This is supposed to be parents, staff, and students. And at the highest of one of the calendars, we had 300 people vote for one calendar, the three different ways, 290 on the other, and 294 on the other. We have 200 staff members approximately, and well over 500 families in the district on top of 1,600, 1,500 kids. So if you do the math there, that's well over 2,200 potential voters. And at the highest level, we have 300. I'm really curious, I would be really curious to see how many of those are actually staff and what the staff's actual vote is there, because I think that's very important. We know how 10 staff members feel, but I'm curious how the other, I don't know if 60 voted, I don't know if 100 voted, I don't know if 90 voted. I think that's very vital information, because the facts that I do know are the last 3 years, we had much more staff participation to where they tried to make sure every staff member voted here. And 3 years in a row, we had over 80% of the staff and the parents vote for the 3-day or the 4-day. That was 3 years in a row. That the percentages for both were over 80%. So I'm just disappointed that we couldn't get more. And I know obviously timeliness, and obviously if parents are going to get feedback on their kids' academics, obviously, you know, kind of the same course here with the 4-day versus the 5-day. But I've got other comments, but I'm going to let other people talk first. Mr. Garza?
A few years ago, the state put more focus on the minutes. So when did they start talking about 165 days, making that the focus? Because a few years back, it was all on the minutes.
They would tell you they don't look at days until it comes to curriculum. Then they look at days. So if you can go on Google and read about this, they'll tell you that minutes are what's important. As long as you meet the minutes, you meet the criteria. In our Zoom with the director of grants division, they're very clear that it's about days. When we ask the question, why is it about days, the response that we get is because we know that learning is incremental. We know that our curriculum is based on a 165-day model, minimal model. And if you're trying to take this curriculum and put it in less than 165, you're basically having to go through a lesson in a quarter or a lesson in an eighth, lesson, which kind of just muddies everything up in their perspective. It doesn't keep it clean as far as the implementation of the curriculum. But I'm as surprised as you, days do matter when it comes to accessing funds through the grant application process.
I could see where the curriculum and the minutes wouldn't line up. But again, those were the expectations or the mandates that came down. So again, I see this as an example of the state not really thinking through when they're pushing down their agendas, because now everything we respond to is recommendations and following the guidelines. But now we're talking about curriculum that's not lining up with a school day that was, being mandated or recommended. To me, it just reinforces the idea that the issue is us trying to make sense of what comes down from the top. And again, I don't know how we can, as a district, really take ownership and control these variables that keep coming down, because it seems like I don't know what agenda, or, you know, when it comes to curriculum and what they're allowing to reach the district, but apparently it feels like they're not taking in the whole environment that's been created, you know, in terms of minutes versus days versus how many class sessions are needed to get through a unit. So I mean, I'm confused about that.
Yeah.
I wish we'd get stuff that was consistent, that was in alignment with a state standard that really was setting us up for success versus, you know, contradiction. Right.
What you say is pretty accurate.
Yeah, because the idea of a, you know, 4 and 5 day, I can see the 4 day in an ideal situation. I can see that really serving our students in that, you know, there's more to learning outside of the classroom. If that 5th day is actually, you know, if maybe we model to families or students different ideas that can be done to promote productivity outside of the classroom, because right now it seems like all the weight of instruction is put on the school system, but we're not really seeing learning as a possibility outside of the classroom, you know, where it's self-managed, or, you know, teaching our kids to follow their interests, or using their time to research or get involved with something that really might catch their interest for a future career. And that's ideal. I know probably, unfortunately, a lot of these kids might use it just to, you know, a complete day off, which is, you know, I guess that's also something that can be done. But I don't know how I'm going to vote at this moment. I just know that it's hard to make sense of a system that sends down contradictions that I really wish would have been well thought out before it got to the districts at this level.
Understood. I wish to rewrite the system. Some of us for over 4 decades, where we've seen the chipping at local control really happen. I'm going to tell you, if we were a high-flying district, they wouldn't care if we were 4 days. It's if we need the access to the funding, it is where they kind of start putting additional constraints, because this competitive funding in the eyes of TA, and therefore, as you put in your application, we're going to give you these funds, we're going to set these additional parameters for you. And I'm going to tell you, these funds, they go a long way in this district, especially if we're trying to implement a foundational curriculum in Natalia, and we've seen the numbers. It's not taken foot yet. So access to over $1.2 million in the next 2 years is critical to Natalia, I can promise you. I'm going to tell you my experience too. Mr. Garza has to do with TA. But my experience coming in here in November, wanting to meet with the staff, going to that first meeting, you can see the fatigue. And this is just in November of the school year. The school years have, they have peaks and they have valleys. Talking to them, it's like you want to get out what you want to say as fast as you can, because you know they have lives, they have families, they have places to be. The 4 day, in my opinion, doesn't provide a lot of opportunity that we would normally see. A half hour to an hour tutoring every day, which I know you can do it on a Friday, but we know our numbers on Fridays were pretty minimal throughout the fall, and maybe we would have had a different kind of numbers coming on Friday. Not this year, because we have to take the assessment, but last year, maybe Fridays were different, and students were coming, they were getting tutoring, and we did have a different outcome. Maybe we the state law needing access to these funds. When we say we need access to these funds, I firmly believe for the success of Natalia, I don't know how you can do without $1.2 million, because we currently use those funds so that we can use state comp funds and other funds for personnel. So we'd have to revamp all that, and we have to do with less people. But that's kind of the plan we've been given to work from. And so we're going to try to work from it and do our best. But I'm going to tell you, compressing the curriculum, in my opinion, is not a gift to kids. The longer day is not a gift to kids and staff. But I also know there's a group of people who will vote for it. We see the numbers. That folks do like having that Friday. They like having access to the children. I understand that. And so, and I get you don't know which way you want to vote. I'm just going to say sometimes the popular decision is not always the right decision, because I think there's some things we have to address foundationally first, and then maybe revisit the opportunity to have more of an innovative schedule. I'm going to say this, in the version C schedule, which is the 5-day, it is kind of a hybrid. Students are going to be off 2 Fridays a month for the majority, for 6 out of the 10 months. So we try to find kind of a median, which was kind of supported in both areas. And that's really all I think where we are right now, that additional day, where we can have additional PLCs, additional hard meetings, additional specialized classes, goes a lot further than trying to get 300, 400, 500 kids up here every Friday and put that brings into the district.
Was there any discussion, because I saw the community response in favor of the 4-day, did we have any discussion about incentivizing that 5th day, maybe using it as a bargaining chip to really urge the kids to apply themselves for, the subject matter and really work at maybe getting a feeder better because they're going to earn that 5th day?
Yeah, we did not. We did not have that discussion what we can do with a Friday. It was basically just kind of laying out what we think are some of the pros, some of the cons, some of the issues that we contend with. We did, because you can do a lot of different things. You can set it at a B level. You can say, we're going to bring in, 3rd, 6th, and 8th grade on this Friday and a different group on the other Friday. So there's a lot of different forms of innovation. We did have a conversation, and folks shared a lot of feedback about, well, why not do every other Friday, or why not do this month of all Fridays, the next month of no Fridays. But we did not talk about incentivizing or setting up a protocol that if you don't win on a Friday, you meet this level of success, you do not. So we did not have that.
Right. And also because, this kind of gives me another example of where, TVA pushes grants and they have stipends and it's the guarantee of the stipend. So the stipend is not incentivized. This is an example of, well, could we use that 5th day as incentive to really, motivate the kids beyond the frontal cortex where they're in their core wanting to do better because they see that reward at the end.
I believe it's something you can do.
I hear what TEA wants, but they also have been doing practices that haven't been getting results.
Correct.
Right. So, again, I just, I think, being in this community, we know our district best, and we just need to make sure we're utilizing the experience we have here to find those motivators, because we're lacking motivation at a bunch of different levels right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mr. Gomez?
All right, real quick. I have 2 hats. I'm gonna put on one, my parent hat. I've been thinking about this the whole time. Of course, everybody up here, everybody has somebody that goes to school here also. So one of the things I think about is my kids, they're involved in sports, so they're up here every day. Band, they're up here on Fridays. And I'm blessed, they all have decent grades, good grades actually, but, but now my board member hat and my community representation, right? I represent the community. And one of the things I have to look at is the scores. Now, I know there's many variables that maybe caused that or helped it, but 29-point drop from 2022 to 25. I don't know, it's just something that, just being a responsible representative, it's just, I can't see not going back to 5, my personal view. And just scores and then the grants also, but mainly it's just being responsible and calling it what it is. It's a change that has to happen, and it's a tough choice, but sometimes that's what we're put here for. So, I'm in favor of C, and it's just off of the numbers, data, and what I think is happening.
Mr. Almandoz?
Yeah, my only concern is going to 5 is how many staff are going to lose. And I know 4 days is not working, so I'm in favor of the 5, but I'm just concerned about how many staff are going to lose.
I can't give you an exact number. I can tell you, I would anticipate it's going to be less than we think, honestly. I do. And then I think we have to have that conversation about if that's the only reason they're here. Are we here for the right reason?
Right. No, I understand, but
No,
it's going to hurt everything in the end,
Yep.
if they do leave. And that's my biggest concern. We can't afford it. But I do support the 5.
Thank you.
So, obviously, 1, 2, 3, 4 of us were here when we debated this, and a few, 4 or 5 faces in here were here when we went to this. Now, I don't know if 4 or 5 faces had direct access to the days of posting a 3rd grade teaching position and having 2 applicants, and posting a high school position and having 0 applicants. Why? Because you could drive 15 miles down the road to Bonita Valley, 15 miles down the road to Somerset, or anywhere in Bexar County and get $8,000 to $15,000 more. This helped us go from 1 or 2 applications to 7, 8, 9, 10 applications. Did that mean we're hiring the right people still? It's still a gamble, it's still a crapshoot, right? Every day you hire folks, y'all trust you're hiring somebody just like our wonderful job trying to figure out who to lead this district next. It's a crapshoot no matter what we do. We're putting trust in the unknown, or a little known. And so that was a huge issue. Other issues that we saw, transportation, having to drop junior high kids off, or high school kids off 2 hours ahead of their event in Cotulla to get a bus back here to run a route because we didn't have transportation and enough buses. Teacher-student workloads, just teacher burnout, not enough time. One could argue, yes, we've dropped, well, rigor has raised. I could argue that a school district 5 miles down the road had 2 F campuses last year, and they're a 5-day. I could argue another school district down the road had a bunch of D campuses, and they're a 5-day. I could also argue that I talked to Comfort today. They approved another 5-day. La Brea approved a 2-year 5-day. Let me start again. Comfort approved another 4-day for the second time. La Brea approved a 2-year 4-day calendar. So they approved 2 years worth of calendars to go out to year 5 and 6. Bandera, I talked to them today. They approved another 4-day. DeHennis approved another 4-day. Lakey, Rungy, I could go on and on. Has anybody in this district called any of those districts to find out why their academics are not dropping and their staff are happy and it's working for their communities? I understand they're not our communities, but I wonder if this financial obligation was not discussed, which realistically puts money in many people's pockets, including many folks here, if we didn't discuss the financial obligation. And shame on all of us, because all of us probably should have had a meeting prior to filling out a grant application that obligated the district to a certain number, because that was never discussed as a board, and I'll take full blame for not having better communication with Dr. B prior to us filling out that grant application, because really, just like not one of us can speak for the district, and that's not on the person who filled out that grant application ever doing their job that they were asked to do by administration. But I don't feel that should have ever been putting the cart before the horse, and definitely for money to be talked, because one could argue that the state's giving us all this money, and like I said, our mid-year assessments, and then, I mean, it's just a fact, we have a lot of great teachers, but we also have a couple, for sure, that we know could probably teach 7 days in a row and still not get academic success. So I don't think it's a 4-day or a 5-day issue. I think it's a structural issue. And I don't think the district should be punished because of a structural issue that's an adult issue. It's not a kid issue. It's not a family issue. One thing that I do like that Dr. B implemented right away, and him and I talked about this prior to him ever coming into the district, was, what are y'all utilizing your Fridays for? We call it Friday school, but it's not really pushed. He said, that's where you're missing out. And so I know for my 2 struggling academic children individually, they have grown a lot by coming to targeted Friday school in just a short amount of time they have. And as big as our gaps are, the reason we have such big gaps, because data says that our staff and our students and our families, our kids are not able, our staff apparently, per data, I know a lot of this is on kids and effort, but data shows that we're not able, through tier 1, 2, and 3 levels of education in a normal classroom setting, reach the top kid and the bottom kid, which is why we have such deep gaps. So I think it would be crazy to give up targeted Friday school while we're trying to close some of these gaps, to go back to putting everybody in 20 to 22 classroom full of kids for the sake of money, when what we need is we need these Friday schools to target these struggling kids, because we're actually seeing some success with that. I know there's others up here whose children have benefited from these Friday schools, and we probably, same thing, we'll put the blame on many of us up here, even though it's more of a daily operational thing, but we probably should have been taking advantage of these Fridays off twice a month, well before Dr. B got here, as far as trying to help those lower ends. And when I talked to Comfort and Lavernia and Bandera today and asked them one of the reasons they liked it the most, other than some adult conveniences and family conveniences, they talked about helping close the gaps, that there are Friday schools twice a month, just like we have, and that it's really been beneficial to their community to reach those lower level kids. And I think that's a huge thing that we would give up here. And we would go back to a lot of our younger teachers who just don't have the capacity or the experience that our veterans do. And they've already proven to us, and like I said, we've been 5-day before. We've been terrible academically, and we've been great academically. But our neighbors next door have been 5-day. They've proven. The districts, I mean, Northside has never had this many B, C, D, and F districts. That's because of rigories. It's not because of 4-day made us that way. Because the 4-day didn't make Comfort, Lavernia, Bandera, Dehennis, Lakey, Runge. There's over 150 districts in the state of Texas that have approved a 4-day. So it's not a 4-day or a 5-day issue. It's a structural Natalia ISD issue that we've got to figure out. But if there are concerns with how to do certain things, I don't know why we haven't, just like we did when we Zoom called with Lavernia at the very beginning of this process, prior to many of the administrators are in here, but why haven't we reached out to successful 4-day districts to find out what they're doing that works? And from talking to Dr. A, you know, when he was in the room, when I guess the question was asked, you know, there was quite a few teachers that raised their hand and stood, which we put teachers in not a bad spot. I mean, it's kind of like a comment earlier, you know, okay, many people are going to vote how they feel, some aren't, but, you know, can we afford to lose just 15 teachers? And then do we realize if we do go back to a 5-day, if that's truly the best thing for kids, or is that the best thing to put more money in our bank or more money in individual folks' pockets? But we go back to being on a level playing field with Bexar County, to where we are getting the 4th and 500 pick 3rd grade teacher to apply once they can't get a job anywhere in Bexar County. at the 100+ elementaries. We're back to a level playing field to where we pay $8,000 to $15,000 less in almost every single position. I would like to know how that helps academics, because we were on this board for many years where we had 0, 1, and 2 applications. Oh, and by the way, that one has a flag on their certification. And that was a big reason why we went to 40 to begin with. I think, oh, and on the hybrid. Google some articles from Floresville ISD, talk to Floresville ISD. I talked to Dr. Cohn in Lavernia. He said, y'all need to talk to Floresville if you want to go to a hybrid and find out why they're not going back to a hybrid, because it was a PR nightmare disaster, as well as UW, who tried the hybrid. Didn't work. That's all my comments.
First off, I have a problem with someone filling out an application.
I'm not going to that person, because that person
No.
never asked.
I have a problem with someone filling out an application without it being discussed. How do we know we were going to 165 days or leading towards that? We didn't know that. We still don't know that. So I have a problem there. I have a problem with funding money before performance. In my job, I get a bonus if I perform. And we haven't seen any good outcomes. So I believe a stipend or a bonus should be given or awarded as we progress. I just think the same students that will go into 110-degree weather and practice for 3 or 4 hours are those same students that don't want to sit in a classroom for an hour or an hour and a half. We have to get their interest, and when children despise coming to school, they call it gel. They don't want to get up in the mornings. We have a problem. Do our teachers really know our children? Where do they come from? What backgrounds do they have? What do they really know what to do, how or not to do? I don't know that 4 or 5 day is our problem. I agree with Mr. Smith. A wise man once said that if a child really wants to do something, whether you have them for an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours, they're going to do it. If they know you care about them and you're in their best interest, they're going to perform. They're going to perform for you. They know you care about them. They want to succeed for you. They want to succeed. They want to succeed for that teacher. But if they feel like that you're just there for a paycheck or you're not there for them, I just feel like we have other problems than a calendar. I think we need to get back to what teaching is about, and that's our children. I don't know what our answer is, but I'm a prayer, so I'm going to keep praying.
Stop directly.
Well, I think what you mentioned is accurate. I mean, there is a motivational factor, and I feel like that's lacking right now. So yes, we do need to motivate our kids, and they need to understand that the persons who are here for them, and that they trust them, and that's working relationship has been developed. But you mentioned something about making sure that we have people, the right people in the position who genuinely care about the students. But if you're saying that the only thing that motivated them to come to this district was the 4-day school week, then how do we know that those are the right fit for our kids to begin with, if that's what truly motivated them? Not their passion, not their profession, but the schedule, the convenience. Initially, I was not on board with the 4-day school week for a lot of reasons. I work most of the time, so I feel like the Friday day is definitely not productive. And if you don't mandate that, then definitely they're not going to come for that additional day. I do like the idea of targeted intervention on those days to close the gap, to offer a little more instruction that's tailored to their individual needs. I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen. And we're also at this mark, why did it take so long to implement that? If it was if it was an amenity we could afford, why did we wait so long to implement it? I also recall at a conference that they had the student panel address the 5 versus 4 day school week, and I naturally assumed that these students would want less days of school. And I think a few of us attended together. Those student panel unanimously voted for 5 day school week for a number of reasons. And it was interesting to hear all of their points. I also had time to review prior to this meeting the comments, the recommendations, and the panel that took the time to put this list together. And it is a comprehensive list of our district staff, and I feel like their input and observations are, I mean, they're valid. You know, they interact with our kids on a daily basis, sometimes even more than we do. And if they feel like this is the best opportunity for them to learn and grow, then that's weighing heavily on this as well. I still haven't completely come to a decision because it is difficult, but ultimately I want to do what's going to be in the best interest for our students and the community. It's hard to make a decision or even consider what the community input is, because if we're tallying up the participation in the surveys, as you mentioned earlier, we don't know if those survey responses came directly from the panel who initially created this list, or if it truly came from community members, so that data is slightly skewed. I mean, we don't really know what direction to go in with that at all. If it was a unanimous decision by student, staff, community, then definitely would support that. I don't have experience necessarily in the education world per se, but I mean, I do have close family members who do, and I know that they have strong philosophies when it comes to working with students and their passion for learning and direction and all of those things. And so I'm kind of weighing in on what her philosophy would be and what we've seen and experienced. You gave a whole spew of data from other districts, and that's fine. I think Dr. V mentioned that there's not enough data to support how this type of district calendar, like the actual results that it produces, there's not enough research right now. And whatever data you gave for other districts is fine, but it's not necessarily of importance to me. I mean, I only want to know what's going to happen to Natalia, and based off of this presentation, the last couple of years have not gone in the right direction. So I also don't feel confident saying that, you know, we could make this 4-day model work, because it hasn't so far. So I'm going to take a little more time to consider that before I fully express, you know, what I'm in supporting. But again, I do respect the responses from the committee that was put together, because they are working with our kids every day. So if they feel like it's necessary, and I feel like that needs to be considered.
I'm going to let Ms. Loza speak, and then I want Dr. A to speak, and then we'll open it up for any other comments.
And that was so to speak.
Yes, sir, of course. Ms. Loza.
Okay, funding. Again, I don't feel that, the attendance. We didn't hear anything about attendance as far as money-wise, because I know the last 2 years we were in trouble because of our attendance. We were losing millions of dollars because of attendance. And I think that was one thing that helped us go into 4 days, because we thought, well, you know, giving them that Friday, our attendance is going to improve.
Staff and students.
Exactly, staff and students. And I remember as a faculty, we were in trouble because we had taken too many days off. And we were told, you need to be here. You need to be here. And we were tired. We were tired, and I really think that Friday really helped me, especially with, you know, the new curriculum that we were getting, at that point, the Amplified, that Friday helped me get my thoughts together and be prepared for our kids on Monday. And I think a lot of teachers get burned out, and have to take some of those days, and being told, you can't take off anymore, you're gonna get, we've lost this much money with faculty, we've lost this much money with students, and I think it averaged out to millions of dollars. But yet, I haven't seen anything as far as attendance. We do go back to a 5-day, what's it gonna look like on Friday? Because I know as a teacher, my Fridays, the attendance was poor. Thursday, I don't know if it was a middle school thing because the kids are gone for football, track nights. Like that time were Thursday nights. I don't know if they moved to Wednesday or how it's done, but they would show up on Friday. And we were losing a lot of money. And we're worried here that we're gonna lose this money, but what about the attendance money? That we're losing from the faculty, that we're losing from the students being out. We talked about losing instructional days on Fridays. We're still losing instructional days on Fridays because a lot of our coaches are out. Lots of coaches are out. And as a teacher, when we come back on Monday, we're having to reteach everything again from Thursday, Friday, what was left, because that wasn't done. They did something else totally different, and we can't blame ourselves, but it was a lot more work on us coming back and having to teach that again, or try to get back, because of that issue that we were having with, to me, it seems that losing instructional days we're still losing it if we go 5 days. And we're still losing money because we're having to hire, and then we get subs, and we don't have enough subs here. Teachers are getting pulled from their conference. You need to go sub here. You need to go take care of this class because we don't have enough subs. We're missing 8 teachers at the junior high. We have 3 subs. We're pulling teacher aides that are supposed to be helping our kids in the classroom to have to go cover another class because we don't have enough subs for Friday. Our poor secretaries, I know, are going crazy because they're like, and not only coaches are out, but so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so called in today. What are we gonna do? I need you to work in your conference. I need you to not go service this kid because I need you to cover this class. So we're losing that day also.
And to piggyback of what she's saying, and these were real issues, and this isn't just a Natalia, too many coaches. We have this thing, we have just as many coaches as anybody else or just as less as anybody else, is the first 3 weeks of every sports season, volleyball has 3 tournaments, basketball has 3 tournaments, softball has 3 tournaments. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. This week, our girls are in Blanco, our boys are in Poteet. So right off the bat, you're talking 6 days, 6 days, and 6 days. That's 18 days. We're worried about 10 days. This is 18 days of bodies out of classrooms, which any past administrator that has been here during our 5-day can tell you we do not have these substitutes necessary to cover classrooms, period. It doesn't happen. So right off the bat, 18 days times the number of coaches. So then when administration got frustrated at all of those coaches are going to the district track meet. Well, guess what the next embarrassing thing that wasn't advertised here? Why is Natalia the only school that came to Dillon and didn't have bodies to cover events like every other school did? Well, that's because our superintendent said no because we can't find subs. So then we had 65 kids in Dillon missing 3 extra coaches that should be there supervising as well as covering our obligations as a district. And then it's, oh, well, Natalia's not doing their job like everybody else at this district event. Those are real things that happen. Anything else, ma'am? And like I said, the thing that scares me the most is I've been on this board when we've had 0, 1, and 2 applications for positions. And I would love y'all to pull up our pay scales compared to everybody else in Bexar County, much less look at their stipends. and their sign-on bonuses. And then figure out how we're gonna put bodies in classrooms if we go back to this. Dr. A? And then I'll go back to Dr. B and then anybody else.
So I counted 4 undecided board members, and I'll get back to that in a minute.
What did you just say?
I said I counted 4 undecided board members.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I'll get back to it in a minute. It's a very tough decision, very tough. So from my perspective, going back to the minutes that the state said we have to meet the 75,600 minutes. Every district gets that. Every district has to meet that. So to me, for Natalia, it's actually what you do with those 75,600 minutes, which opens up a whole can of worms, a lot of questions, a lot of thought processes. What are staff doing during their 75,600 minutes? Are they doing enough? If not, why not? Are they certified? We have 11 core content teachers that are not certified. Those are core content now. I didn't discuss the electives. We have several of those too. I think it's important to also discuss the finances. We haven't discussed the finances. If we go 5 days, it's going to increase our budget. You know, we had a deficit budget of about 170,000. That's going to increase if nothing changes. And it won't, because the biennium gave us 2 years worth. You just know that if we go that route, it's gonna increase our budget. So just those 2 things to think about. Every district in the state has to have 75,600, including us. More importantly to me is what's being done during that time frame, not 4 or 5. What are we doing in this district, in our district, to make sure our students are learning, and then the finance side of things. So my question to you is there anything else we can bring to y'all? Is there anything else we can show y'all that would make you feel more confident in your decision making? Because do we have to have decisions tonight?
We are behind our master schedule, probably already in the way. We definitely need to have a decision. Yeah. I mean, yes, save off another month for our master schedule. So I don't like that. Something else I'd like to, can I talk a little bit?
Yeah.
I heard it from Ms. Brown. I just want to be really clear whose decision it was to check the box that said we're committed to work 165 days, and that's mine. Ms. Lopez came to me and I said, yes, we are checking that box, because I was committed to having this conversation, and we started to have it. Because, at least we're having a conversation, if we didn't check that box, we would have got nothing in grants. And so our question would have already been answered. At least this way, we get to voluntarily reject it and say, that's just like not checking the box. So it's been the same thing. So that was my decision. I just want to make sure I'm really clear about that. I also heard a lot of comments, a lot of what you said. And I know there's other districts out there who do 4-day school week and they do it successfully. We're not there right now. We need to understand that we are approaching the threshold of TEA coming in and saying you're not getting the job done, Natalia, and we're not that far away from it. You're not getting the job done, therefore we're going to come over, we're going to come into your district and tell you exactly what needs to happen, how you're going to get the job done, and then we don't get to make these decisions again. I'm not saying, and I am a proponent of the 5-day school week. I think it naturally aligns with the family work week. I think it makes sure kids are in school, they have access to nutrition that other day. I don't disagree with any of the concerns that you all brought up. I think they're all valid, but I'm going to respectfully disagree with the fact that we can get to where we need to be in this 4-day structure right now. I think our gap is so wide that we need to do something different to get back to what made Natalia successful back in the day, and then we can have this conversation about innovative scheduling. And I know I'm not going to be here, so who am I to talk? I still love kids, I still love Natalia, I care about what happens in Natalia, but I do think our gap is too big and so wide that we can bring in 100 kids every Friday, but we really need 400 or 500 every Friday to do something. I showed you all the data that there's 78 students sitting in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade who have never, for the past 3 years, been successful in a math assessment. And that's a lot of numbers for our size. And you're right, it's not the 4-day or 5-day that did that. There's other variables, but if we're here together more throughout the year, we have more first day beginning of classroom, we have more independent activity, we have more students. I think our attendance is decent. We'll go back and see what our attendance at 5-day looks like compared to the 4-day these years. I did pull data about retention. I don't have any recruitment data, but I pulled the 3 years before the pandemic. We had 77 staff members leaving that 3-year window, and then the last 3 years that we were in a 4-day school week, 99 people left. So as far as keeping people in the district, I can tell you the data says it's pretty much a wash. I don't know if that is happening. We do have an issue with so many people being out. I'm going to tell you, we actually have data this week that we received from Coach Reynolds showing us what events that we have in the next month during instructional time and what coaches are going to be out of the instruction. And we do have too many coaches leading during the day. It's something that we are mitigating. We have a conversation with Coach Reynolds. Let's bring up. I know we need folks at track meets. We need to match our numbers. I'm not talking about sending one person, but there's no reason we have to send 3 coaches to a boys golf tournament. I don't know why. There's no reason to send 3 coaches to one boys golf tournament, and that takes 2 additional people out. There should be 1 coach going with the golf team, not 3. So we're trying to identify those ways that we can keep more staff in. But yeah, we had 23 people out yesterday. We had 24 people out today. We do have an issue with staff being out, and we're addressing that. The ones who are outliers, we're addressing that with them in conversation and written memo. We're always going to have that issue. I just think I'm recommending for you to consider doing something a little more drastic, because if we don't stop something in 2 years, we're not going to be able to make this decision anyway. Someone's going to make it for us. That's what I ask you to consider. I will respect wherever this collective board falls. It's a hard decision, and I'm sorry to bring this to you, but we tried to work with TA. We tried to gather information where we could, and I think we've done the best that we could as a group. And I think we fought what we could for the board to make this tough decision.